Hi, my name is Michael and I'm here to discuss with you a classroom tool that I've created to assist learners suffering with trauma and anxiety-related illnesses, specifically PTSD. There is a profound value found in teachers investing effort, time, and knowledge to students that are suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder. Students that have PTSD tend to relive a traumatic event through nightmares, flashbacks, and disturbing mental images. The symptoms common to PTSD are emotional numbness, anxiety, lack of concentration. They may be irritable and may feel detached to present situations due to just the range of emotions they're feeling at one time. There are other identifying factors of PTSD which demonstrate that it is a disorder that vitally needs attention and specific care. Using a resource that self-educates an individual allows an opening for students to reach a new level of understanding on what they are going through, while simultaneously elaborating to students' tactics and even simply raising awareness on how to cope and elevate to a better psychological and emotional state of being. When teaching trauma-affected students, teachers should be aware of both the impacts of childhood or past trauma on learning and the impacts on themselves as professionals working within trauma-affected organizations. It is important to remember that while teachers are not mental health professionals, they can be therapeutically informed to tend and offer specific learning capacities that trauma impacts, and by introducing self-regulatory abilities. The way in which this can be made a possibility is by this artifact that I've created called the Emoji Guide. Emoji in the modern era has taken communication to another realm through the landscape of texting. Written in the Carry 11 article, experts have discovered that 40% of millennials say that emojis and GIFs are a much greater form of expression and communication outlet for their thoughts and feelings. Quite often sending a text, you just send an emoji because it kind of sums it all. So students with similar experiences as Nelson, who is someone that we studied in a case study, who had been deeply affected by a war-stricken nation and was forcibly removed from Sudan as a refugee, suffers emotionally and yet silently. Nelson and many others suffering PTSD may often feel like they lack the words to express how they truly feel in situations, and as a result they are misheard and misunderstood. Emojicons can become the symbols of feeling and expressivity. Nelson can use this tool to help navigate through emotions he feels in the classroom, and explanations provided will help to systematically structure a process that allows him to work through his emotions and self-medicate. Through this form of artifact, students battling PTSD can recognize their feelings by referring to the Emoji Guide on a daily basis or however often necessary. This enables them to seek further in noticing the roots of the symptoms that they face by literally putting a face or emoji to what was once internalized. Like this, we've got anxiety, joy, then we've got anger, sadness, and a whole bunch of different ones. So yeah, this can be momentous when it comes to finding a solution. When it comes, students can then use the advised remedies and tactics through physical, emotional, and spiritual acts to diminish PTSD, as it is in fact something curable. The key features of this artifact will involve different emojis representing different PTSD symptoms. As you can see, there are faces with different emotions like I just showed, and on the back there is a short description of what the emotion is, and explains why it may be occurring and how a student can react to it in a constructive way. So yeah, students using this tool are required to critically self-reflect on their daily feelings to then dictate and acknowledge their present state in order to inform the teachers and also specifically come to direct terms with everything they're feeling. By recording their day-to-day emotions through the guide, it will allow them to stay conscious and bring forth a sense of control. Beneath the emojis, an explanation of that emotion symptom will be described, and then advice and tips such as meditation, physical activity, deep breathing sessions, art expression, and etc. will be stated. Students will be able to flip to the emoji they are feeling and then leave it face up on their desk for teachers to view during class. So teachers can monitor their students' emotional posture during class and also offer further assistance to the matter. For example, let's say Nelson was completing a class exam and it was supposed to be done over a double period. At the start of his class, he's got the joy thing faced up. So he's sitting there, all happy, excited for the exam. And let's say halfway through the exam, he starts to feel a bit nervous. So he flips to the anxiety emoji, and over here you can see that it's got some. So it explains anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear, worry, and it goes on to explain how you can manage it. Nelson then continues to take a moment to stop and complete a breathing exercise as described on the card. So it says a 4-7-8 technique, which is breathe in 4 seconds, hold breath for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds. While this has happened, he's changed his card to the anxiety face. So the teacher notices the change of emoji and comes to speak to Nelson. Determining that he is being overwhelmed by the exam and is not coping with the task, the teacher then decides to make adjustments to Nelson's situation and facilitates his ability to successfully complete the task by letting Nelson leave the classroom for a short break to gather his thoughts and emotions, and then come back and complete the remainder of the exam, allowing him extra time accordingly. It's what we call just making a reasonable adjustment to help him. This form of implementation in students' daily lives equips them to withhold changes and continue onwards in sustainable healing. Therefore, this tool shows values of efficiency whereby students can not only immerse themselves in comprehending how they feel in only a few straightforward steps with equivalent solutions. For a teenager like Nelson, images such as an emoji documentation might be the best way to show their feelings, and in turn, teachers can grasp how to be of help for that particular moment. So according to the Australian curriculum, the artifact corresponds with the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992, which promotes the understanding and acceptance of all people. This act refers to the governing of unlawful discrimination due to disability in learning environments, referring to a broad variety of learning disabilities, including difficulties due to mental health illnesses, which is what we're looking at. Furthermore, legislation passed in 2005, known as the Disability Standards for Education, explains that education providers and teachers must provide opportunities and choices in the classroom comparable to those offered to students without disability. So making it equal for everyone, pretty much. Alongside this, the nationally consistent collection of data on school students with disabilities highlights that educators must assess the situation of students facing disabilities that affect learning and appropriately make adjustments to ensure that all learners are benefiting equally and accessing resources fairly, which is what this tool aims to implement. So making adjustments to classwork and tasks for students with learning disabilities may cause other students to feel like their teachers have given them favoritism over themselves. And this is where we talk about some limitations that this guide might have. This can result in greater discrimination in the classroom and peer rejection, as explained in a study undertaken by Delaware University. As a result, these students receiving special considerations, like saying he was able to take a break in the middle of his exam and come back and have extra time to finish it later. And this pretty much removes the benefits that this tool has. And also while adding more strain to the student facing PTSD and other trauma-related illnesses. That is why it is of utmost importance that teachers educate all students on diversity and inclusion in the classroom. In order for students with disabilities to truly feel comfortable, all members in the classroom need to be on board and willing to contribute to an equitable learning environment. And students without learning disabilities need to appreciate that some students require special circumstances in order to appropriately strive in their learning in comparison to themselves. Another limitation that I found is this tool may cause as a result of its implementation is that students may feel that with the use of the emoji board and the suggestions on how to deal with specific emotions, that they do not need help externally from teachers and other persons like other professionals like counselors to manage their feelings resulting from their trauma. Students like Nelson may feel like this emoji board is the only thing they need to fix the struggles they face. But the truth is that the long-lasting treatment of mental health issues like PTSD require multiple solutions and processes. It's not a simple fix. The teacher's role in this is monumental. This is a great tool that should be utilized with vigilant teaching. Educators must understand that facilitating students with trauma requires a lot of initiative, and teachers should always be checking in with students and their progress within the classroom. Furthermore, further improvements involving the digitalization of this tool, like an online widget that the teacher and student can both access, will also help in allowing students to feel like they aren't singled out or weird because they're using this guide. And it also helps with the confidentiality of their mental health if they prefer. I believe that this is a great tool that can be utilized in classrooms to help bridge the gap for students with learning disabilities, promote equitable learning, and maximize these students' potential in their schooling endeavors. Thank you for listening. Bye.